issues are important enough to discuss with the LA Times. They're important enough to discuss directly with the people living them. Anything less isn't just disrespectful, it's a fundamental failure of leadership and accountability. Mr. Pizarro says in the LA Times interview, I need to go to the supermarket in Pasadena or Altadena and be able to look people in the eye. We want to do the right thing for our community. You had a chance to look folk in the eye at our town hall meeting last week, but you didn't show up. And then we invited you for a one-on-one conversation here at the station, but you have yet to confirm. So please stop with the gaslighting. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. I woke up this morning to the news that Donald Trump's administration is moving forward with the dismantling of the Department of Education. And I wanted to share a little soliloquy with you about my first election to Congress in 1995. When I got there, I came in a special election, so it wasn't the traditional route to Congress. And it was interesting. The culture was of such. Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. A number of very, very powerful Southern congressmen were heads of the major committees in the Congress of the United States. And I just had this sinking feeling in my stomach that while Democrats in the Congress were doing business as usual, that there was something else afoot in the contract with America. So sometime in 1996, early in 1996, I convinced Frank Watkins and Leisha Green and my staff to take a tour with me of Newt Gingrich's congressional district down in Georgia. We rented a bus. We went down south to see who the people are that sent this guy to Washington, D.C. And there we saw Stone Mountain, Georgia, and Chickamauga, and all of these battlefields. And in the middle of his congressional district, we saw Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis. I believe those were the figures carved into Stone Mountain, Georgia. First time I'd ever been to Stone Mountain, Georgia, which, by the way, is some kind of state theme park that is designed as a plantation. I mean, a literal cotton plantation. And it's this huge mammoth rock that's stuck in the ground that was probably a meteor or something that had flown in from outer space. Anyway, they carved this massive monument to the Confederacy into this massive stone, like Mount Rushmore. And so they have these light shows there every night where they celebrate Dixie and the Confederacy. And I said to myself, I'm just wondering how vast is this story spreading? Now, this is 1996. I then take my staff on several tours from Virginia around to Texas, where we begin studying these Southern congressmen from these congressional districts. And the one thing that united them all was culture and history, particularly the Old South and Dixie. So I wrote a book called A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights, because so much of what they were trying to do in the Congress of the United States was centered around the 10th Amendment. They called themselves constitutional originalist. That is, the 10th Amendment essentially says that those rights not specifically written in the Constitution of the United States are state rights. So if you can't find the word education or education department in the Constitution, they have a legal basis in their minds of saying, hey, the 10th Amendment says that the federal government shouldn't be in the education business. Then they come back with, you all are arguing for Medicare and Medicaid and health care for all, but the word health care is not in the Constitution. And since it's not in the Constitution, the right to provide people with health care should be done on a state-by-state basis. Well, just go right on down the line. The right to a clean, safe, and sustainable environment. The word environment is not in the Constitution. So each state, all 50 separate and unequal states, get to do what they want with the environment, pump whatever they want into the environment. Some states can have clean air and some states can't, but global warming proves that the lines that separate us as a country are irrelevant to the idea that we should be building what? A more perfect union. And how about this? In our democracy, the fundamental right to vote isn't even in the Constitution. So they argue that the right to vote is a state right. That's why Donald Trump can call Georgia and say, give me 11,700 votes. He can call Governor of Texas and say, give me 5 new congressmen. Because it's not in the Constitution. We say we live in a democracy, but the right to vote is not in the Constitution affirmatively. It's there what the government can't do with respect to the right to vote. So when I woke up this morning looking at the dismantling of the Department of Education, and I realized that once again, I wrote this book in 2001 based on these tours that I took called A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Right. It dawned on me once again, and others have said it, that the only alternative to Project 2025 is what Jesse Jackson Jr. wrote in 2001. And during the COVID, I updated it in 2019. As it relates to education, all citizens should enjoy the right to a public education of equal high quality, to overcome states' rights, and the Congress of the United States shall have the power to implement this legislation by appropriate legislation. That's how we fix the education system. The education department in Washington, D.C., under their theory, does not have a basis in the Constitution. But there's also no Democrat in the country fighting for the constitutional right to guarantee all citizens the fundamental right to a public education of equal high quality. And we need to settle in the second part of that amendment, the states' rights question. The Congress shall have the power to implement this article by appropriate legislation. If we want to reduce class sizes, it needs constitutional foundation. If we want to pay teachers the kind of money that they deserve, it needs constitutional foundation. If we want computers and laptops in the hands of every child in this country, it needs to have a constitutional foundation, because it is the same 10th Amendment that they argued when the federal government said, let these Negroes go. They said we have a state right to keep Negroes in slavery. And so states' rights has never been our friend in this struggle for justice. It just hasn't been. So we have to fight for a new America. That's the perspective of our history. That's what it has taught us. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is Wealthy Wednesdays. When we come forward, my man Atiba is going to be our special guest and our continued conversations on Jamaica. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Let me be clear about what we're witnessing here. A textbook case of talking about communities instead of talking with them. Pedro Pizarro, president and CEO of Edison International, found time this week to sit down with the LA Times to discuss their so-called fast pay program for those impacted by the Altadena-Eaton Canyon fire. We think it is neither fast nor fair, but when we organized the community town hall, Southern California Edison first confirmed participation and then abruptly canceled. There was no time available on Mr. Pizarro's calendar for a face-to-face conversation with the individuals and families who have lost everything due to the negligence of Southern California Edison. This is not an accident. This is a choice about who deserves direct engagement and who gets managed through press statements. When you talk to the LA Times about people, you control the narrative. You get to frame the issues on your terms, with your spin, filtered through journalists who may or may not push back. But when you show up to a town hall, you face real questions from real people experiencing real problems. There's no PR buffer. There's real accountability. This pattern of being available to corporate media but unavailable for community dialogue sends a clear message about whose voices matter and whose don't. It's the kind of disrespect that hides behind busy schedules and prior commitments, but the community sees right through it. If these issues are important enough to discuss with the LA Times, they're important enough to discuss directly with the people living them. Anything less isn't just disrespectful, it's a fundamental failure of leadership and accountability. Mr. Pizarro says in the LA Times interview, I need to go to the supermarket in Pasadena or Altadena and be able to look people in the eye. We want to do the right thing for our community. You had a chance to look folk in the eye at our town hall meeting last week, but you didn't show up. And then we invited you for a one-on-one conversation here at the station, but you have yet to confirm. So please stop with the gaslighting. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk
1580. And our conversation with Atiba. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He is a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, GovExec, 96.3 WHUR, and the One American News Network. He most recently was a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C. political newspaper The Hill. In 2020, Atiba released his first novel, Saving Grace, a political thriller. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be here, Jesse.
Man, how you been doing?
I'm good. How you been doing?
Man, I'm hanging in there as best I possibly can. Talk to me, Atiba. What's on your mind today? I do want to pick up on some of that work that's going on in Jamaica. But anything else you want to talk about, bro? Let's do it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We still never got a chance to go back to Virginia after that election a couple of weeks ago. And I mention it because, there's so many other pieces what have you that are coming together right now that we're seeing with the shutdown ending last week, earlier this week, and, just so many different things, Jesse. So when you say whatever I want to talk about, I feel like that's a loaded question. That's a loaded statement.
I can follow you. I can dance with you. Come on, let's do it. Let's go back to that Virginia issue, though. We did have a successful election there. It really raised the spirits and the hopes of a lot of progressives and Democrats, and quite frankly, all kinds of Americans. The numbers are showing out of that race that Democrats and Republicans actually came together and said, hey, wait a minute, we don't like the direction of the country and the direction that it's going together. Atiba, your thoughts on what that means and what its broader implications could be for the nation.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with talking to my mom last weekend as she was driving through Virginia and North Carolina. And, our family has land that was bought by former slaves who were my great great grandparents that's still in our family. And in those areas are big president areas in terms of big red areas. And she said she was just surprised. She said, wow, I'm driving through here. And she said, there are no more signs. And those signs were up until just about a month ago. And then you look at Virginia and, when I'm having here in Florida conversations with people, I'm like, you got to look at Virginia, a state that the president carried in 2024. And yet the opponent lost every single county in Virginia. When was the last time we saw something like that? And I almost kind of want to go and look at it. I haven't looked at, did it happen under Obama? I don't think so. Did it happen under President Clinton? I don't think so. So, this being a off year, election year, it wasn't a midterm and it wasn't a national campaign year. For that to happen, I continue to say, and I said it last night on a platform, NTD News, going up against a Republican who was reading all his talking points. And I wanted to say, dude, you're swinging for the fence, but you're missing. Because the bigger issue right now is affordability. And that is an issue that I think the Democrats did a good job of bringing attention to healthcare, maybe not as much as I would like to have seen them talk about the whole gamut, but we have a big affordability issue. And I think that is part of the reason why the governor-elect Spanberger won pretty big in Virginia.
Atiba, let me challenge you and challenge our listeners through Atiba's eyes to break down this question of affordability. Now, the reason I say that is because for a lot of political candidates in this season, affordability becomes a talking point. We must be for affordability. We must stand. Break down what affordability means. We work hard every day, and at the end of a hard day's work, we need supplemental nutrition assistance. We can't afford to eat. I mean, that's what affordability means. I mean, at the end of 3 jobs, we still need the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. I mean, affordability, beyond the title or the term affordability, which sounds like everyone's gonna do it. Bill Clinton comes right back and says, "But can you feel my pain?"
Yeah. And I don't feel like you challenged me on that one. I feel like you threw the ball up and let me hit a home run on that.
Please do.
I mean, the thing is that when we're talking about affordability, there are people now that are receiving what their health envelopes that are showing them what their health premium is going to cost in 2026. In some cases, it's 3, 4, and 5 times more than what they've been paying. That's affordability. When the people are going to have to take a job and they can't afford to pay for the gas. These are kitchen table conversations. And I feel like now, because we have the internet and we have the phones and we're texting, we're not necessarily having the water cooler conversations at the water cooler, and we're not having the kitchen table conversations. But kind of we feel like we need to get back to that, because bottom line is when people are going to vote, and you and I have talked about this in the past, people vote with what is in their wallet or what's not there in their wallet, what's in their bank account or what's not in their bank account. And we have a president right now, in my lifetime, I feel like is unprecedented, who does not seem to care very much about the American citizen as long as they are supportive of him, as long as he gets the piece he wants. In fact, there was a piece that Jasmine Crockett said in reference to the Epstein piece that I think that we're going to show a clip.
Speaking of hypocrisy, I do want to point out, since we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, because we couldn't talk about Epstein before. If y'all recall, we were gone for about 2 months because we couldn't talk about Jeffrey Epstein. And now everybody wants to act as if they want to have like a real honest conversation about the victims and the survivors and everybody else. Where was this conversation a long time ago? And I know that y'all love to go back and say that Joe Biden didn't do it. You know, Joe Biden is blamed for everything. Joe Biden didn't do anything, and it was Joe Biden's fault. And why wasn't Joe Biden didn't campaign on it? I just want to be clear. If y'all can run me the tape, then run me the tape. But you know, when you campaign and you go out and you make a promise, then we evaluate whether or not you actually meet your promises. So listen, this was rope that y'all decided to hang yourselves with because the president campaigned on the Epstein files while we were campaigning on things such as affordability. We were campaigning on the things that now people are complaining about, right? Because of the tariffs and the fact that you guys won't say anything and tell the president, hey, sir, tariffs are taxes. We as Republicans, we usually don't like taxes. And guess what? That's going to make everything unaffordable. So now he's going to be our big savior, and he is going to reduce the price of foods because he is the guy that actually increased the price of foods. So listen, if you can have this honest conversation about Epstein now, let's just go ahead with this lame duck president and be honest about everything that the American people care about. They care about affordability. They care about the fact that literally people are starving in this country because we have 42 million people. And I don't remember any one of you during that almost 2-month break deciding to go on faux news or any other news outlet and say, you know what, it is wrong to have 42 million people that are relying on $6 a day to eat. And we have the money because somehow our president was able to find under the couch cushion, the one that JD wasn't sitting on, under the couch cushion, he was able to find 40. How much did he find to send to Argentina? 40, there we go. 40 billion to send to Argentina. But those emergency funds, he couldn't find them emergency funds so that Americans could eat.
So she gets right to the point on affordability. I need something to eat. She brings it right on home from Epstein's files, which are what they are, and they need to be addressed. Oh, go ahead. Knock that one out the park.
She hit that one out of the park. She hit it out the park. Yeah. And you're right. She went right in on affordability. And I thought it was interesting how she tied it into what it seems like every American is talking about right now in terms of Epstein files. Even my friends overseas are like, what's going on about this Epstein thing? What happened? We don't know. What we do know is people are having a hard time paying foreclosures. I just saw an article today that in Tampa is leading the country in foreclosures. What we know is that people are having a hard time with paying rent. They're having a hard time with buying food. These are all kitchen table conversations, and these are things that people are feeling and worrying about at the end of the day.
Can we move subjects quickly to the idea of what's going on in Jamaica, kind of following up on what our friend talked about last week? Your very special guest on how the people are faring in that part.
Sure. It's interesting because, of course, as with anything, as we do, they're trying to get back to a sense of normalcy when it's a new normal. In terms of have friends who have had leaky roofs and have been trying to get someone to come repair it. And, you may have experienced this with the winters, for instance, in Chicago. I know that I've experienced it in DC where you get a heavy snowstorm, that snow rests on the roof, you get a leak. Well, imagine what was happening there. And we heard last week from the gentleman about what was happening in terms of how he felt that those trees, it felt that the way he saw those trees, it looked like they were literally not wind blown off, but like as if they were burned off. So, in terms of my sister just got back and like listening to some of the things that she said and what she saw there, there's still roads that are blocked. There are still places that are not and will not open for a long time. And here's a tourist destination that makes a great deal of money. Their survival is based on tourism. So, they're not there anywhere close to there yet, but the people who live there are trying to get back to a sense of normalcy. And my hope is that in a week or two, we'll have someone else on to come on and give us an update.
In this moment, I'm thinking about the United States Agency for International Development and its absence. This is one of those moments where we feel the absence of U.S. aid, which is less, of course, than 1% of 1% of the federal budget. Your thoughts on these cuts and how they're impacting many of our allies around the world? Especially,
last night, in terms of what I was invited to talk about was supposed to be about the president and this $1 trillion deal that was just made with Saudi Arabia. But for me, as I said before, I kept trying to make it and take it back to affordability, where we talk about USAID and what we've done, because the issue or what the Republicans are going to continue trying to say is that this is good for national security. What's not good for national security is what we have done in terms of taking ourselves out of the role of being not just a police officer, but also being the comforter, to the one that comes in when there is a catastrophe like we saw in Jamaica, and not being there to help those people that are right now direly in need.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest and contributor on Wealthy Wednesdays, always in the first segment of our show, are our conversations with Atiba. We cover the world, we cover the current, and we cover what's going on. More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward with Atiba.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A bill demanding the release of every file tied to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is now on its way to President Trump.
An act to require the Attorney General to release all documents and records in possession of the Department of Justice relating to Jeffrey Epstein.
Trump has already said he plans to sign it once it reaches his desk. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams praised incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani for keeping Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, calling it a nod to his administration's successful public safety policies. Adams notes crime has dropped for 8 straight quarters, while Mamdani says he values Tisch's work on reducing corruption and crime. And the House rejected a resolution to censor Black Democrat Stacey Plaskett for receiving a 2019 text from Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing. 3 Republicans joined Democrats in voting no. Plaskett says she was not involved in any illegal activity and has donated all Epstein campaign contributions to women's groups. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's the Black Friday of all Black Fridays now at Big O Tires. Buy 3, get 1 free on select tires with paid installation, or get 50% off a full synthetic oil change and 20% off any repair service. It's Black Friday now through December 7th at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of follow-up notes from LeBron's historic season debut Tuesday night. LeBron had only 11 points in the Lakers' win over the Utah Jazz, but he still holds the NBA all-time record for most consecutive games to score in double figures. LeBron has scored 10 or more points in 1,293 straight games. The streak started on January 6, 2007. LeBron's first NBA game was in Sacramento on October 29, 2003, when he was with Cleveland. There were 2 players in Utah's starting lineup Tuesday night that weren't even born on that day. Shooting guard Keontae George was born on November 8, 2003. Rookie point guard Ace Bailey was born August 13, 2006. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders will make his first NFL start for the Cleveland Browns in Sunday's game in Las Vegas. Dillon Gabriel is still dealing with concussion symptoms. Deion's son now has the opportunity he's been pushing for. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
I joined the military for my kid and his mom. I miss my son a lot. One of the things with the military is tobacco, but I saw a lot of people try to deal with mental issues. Everyone's vaping constantly. After my first hit of a vape, I was hooked like that. Once I got back home from my deployment, I caught my son trying to hit my vape. That was it. I had to quit.
Isaiah started vaping to try to deal with stress and quit because of his son. Learn how he and other Californians are rising above big tobacco at undo.org.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays and our conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be here, Jesse.
Atiba, let's pick back up on how we can help the people of Jamaica in this hour of desperation.
Yeah, so in Jamaica, one of the things that has been that I'm told has been helpful is that they're getting water, they're getting food, but they really do need are blankets and clothing, just everyday things that we take, and I don't want to say we take for granted, but that we have means to have, that many people lost completely when their roofs were taken off and the winds blew all of their items at home away. So if you think of those type of items in terms of things that may be in your closet, things that may be in your home that you may be trying to throw out or give to a thrift store, consider going online and finding some place and some way to provide that to the people in Jamaica.
I appreciate that. If I can pivot for a second, your thoughts on these files that are coming out, and Jasmine did touch upon it in the clip that we had. I want to say for the record, I'm kind of amazed at some of the language we talk about. Human trafficking is wrong as hell. You should be punished for it. I'm totally right there. I get it. Taking advantage of these kids, these children, absolutely. Throw the whole book at them. But here's the street talk. Jeffrey Epstein was a pimp, man. I mean, he's just a high-end pimp with a lot of important people that he pimped for, right? I mean, that's what this is. He's a hustling pimp. Now,
I almost want to take it a step further. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to take it a step further. Jeffrey Epstein was a drug dealer.
Yeah,
because these people were apparently addicted to whatever it was that he gave them a little taste, and they just couldn't get enough of it.
I think that's right. A drug dealing pimp, man. That's who Jeffrey Epstein was. But you'll never hear the media refer to him as a pimp because he just doesn't look like the definition of what a pimp is. Now, I don't know what the hell a pimp looks like. Of course, I know what a pimp looks like. But I mean, he's just not he didn't fit the mold of a pimp, but he's a pimp, man.
Yeah, but he had like files on so many people, from royalty to heads of state to CEOs, and and all these people. It doesn't matter about political affiliation. What matters is that whoever was in this, and we've had women who have come out and have given testimonies, and my heart goes out to them for the stories that they have had to go back to their childhood to talk about. But we often, my dad and I mentioned this yesterday, we often talk about this, but we also, I feel like as Americans of African descent who have ancestors who were enslaved, and in some cases were enslavers, that the color of my skin didn't become this way for nothing. And when you think about trafficking, this is something that is part of America's history. When you think about trafficking, what was trafficking? Slaves being kidnapped from Africa, brought here, and over the course of time, I try to and don't want to imagine, but I can't help but to imagine that this thing that we see that is in these men is something that I think is the issues in their tissues. It's part of their guilt. It's a whole nother thing, whatever, in terms of conversation. So when you asked me what my thoughts are on this, I just think it's sick. And I think that There's that it's incredible that our fascination is so much on this, and that if there is something that could possibly derail this presidency, that it could be this, when there are all these other things too that are.
I absolutely agree. And I think Democrats, quite frankly, are making a miscalculation on what the blowback is going to be as these files and these documents are released, because Joe Biden and others in their justice departments had the chance to go after anyone on these lists who might have been implicated or involved in sex trafficking, the treatment of these children, and drug dealing, and the good times that they had on Fantasy Island. When we find out who those Democrats are, man, it's going to start a whole nother cascade of events in the Democratic Party, because we didn't prosecute them. We selectively ignored them. And how did they get away with it and avoid the investigations?
But here's another part of that, Jesse. 2016 and 2024, there were women who were at the top of the ticket. And there was a huge movement to try to derail them from becoming president. And what was the fear, or those who are in power who could control to best they could to make sure that a woman didn't get there, because they felt the insecurity that would come if a woman came in touch with having the power to release those findings.
So now we're lifting the veil here, Atiba, which is one of the reasons I appreciate our conversations. You don't hold back, and I try not to either. So the Justice Department under Democrats has protected people too, and they have selected people to prosecute too. You can't escape it. It can't be escaped that the presidents of the United States know exactly the news stories that are coming that could affect their supporters, their contributors, people they have relationships with, people they hobnob with. And when they need a favor, there is a wink and a nod that Trump may not be too wrong with. And so if he's being candid, which is impossible, and said, impossible, he's already talking about going after Bill Clinton and talking about going after others, including he needs to go after himself, right? But, these people's names showed up in government documents, in federal investigations, and at no point in time had any inquiry ever been launched into their behaviors. It just did not happen. And how that happens when the victims are so young, so innocent, when there are any victims, the fact that there are people who can avoid justice in our system and within our own party, I'm telling you, bro, it's going to be a blow. It's going to start being a blowback by me. Like, why me? And everybody else get away with what they got away with. I ain't trying to get away with nothing. I own my behavior. But there are people out here who are not accountable, Atiba, and they're not owning their behavior.
Yeah, it's like a kid and after mom or grandma makes a batch of cookies and they're in the jar, and you're told, don't put your hand in the cookie jar. Can't have that until after dinner. And they know they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, but somehow they're still able to manipulate the story and say, well, I know that there were 24 cookies in the cookie jar. I know you counted that there are only 19 there, but I wasn't the one that ate the 5. Okay, well, who else came in here? Nobody else, but so, what we keep seeing with all of this right now, it's they're saying the lie travels halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. The pants are on. The truth has caught up. Now it's the fight, to try to get the truth off. And I don't, it's a day coming. The question is, I'm trying to remember there was a movie years ago where the president got into trouble and then they Wag the Dog with Dustin Hoffman. That comes to mind. It's like, okay, well, what is the president now going to do? He was asked by an ABC reporter yesterday a question about what happened, and his deflection was totally boom. He was asked about Jamal Khashoggi yesterday. He deflected that. So all these things is like we seeing all these criminals come up to the forefront and they keep getting away with stuff. But what's the saying? A broken clock is still right twice a day. At some point, this whole thing is they're in quicksand and they can't get out of it.
Tiba, wag the dog is to create a war. It's to have a conflict where lives are lost, where countries are invaded or bombed, and create a national emergency to deflect and change the nation's attention. There's another triangulation component to wagging the dog, which is the domestic politics of using a foil. But wagging the dog is to start a war. And we only need look at where all of the battleships are going, the little rickety boats that are coming out of Venezuela, the threats of military intervention in Venezuela, the timing of this massive buildup in South America, in the Caribbean, is evidence that people who don't even have a gunboat, who don't even have a fishing boat, are about to confront the most lethal military force ever conceived in human history. And these are people that Donald Trump doesn't care anything about. And that's one of the great tragedies of this hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're having our regular conversations with Atiba. Atiba, we have just a few more seconds before we come forward. Your thoughts on the Venezuelan angle with respect to wagging the dog?
All this stuff that we see going on, not just Venezuela, what we also see with these agents going around the country and this whole so-called thing about immigrants and illegal immigrants, all this stuff is manufactured. And, I don't want to go too deep in this, but I couldn't help but read the story in the Bible of Moses and the Pharaoh and the distractions. And that's what I keep going back to. These are distractions, and we have to keep our minds focused on what the prize is in order to get this, in order to change so we can change the story.
We're having our conversations with Atiba on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Atiba when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The laws have not changed in California. All workers must be paid properly and protected from retaliation. Retaliating against a worker or not paying them because of their immigration status is illegal. Don't believe the lies. California laws protect all workers, regardless of immigration status. Document retaliation and wage theft. Report it to the Labor Commissioner's office. Learn about your labor rights. Visit wagetheftisacrime.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on KBLA Talk 1580. We're having our conversation with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Good being here, Jesse.
Atiba, you know we're going to have a word of hope at the end of the show towards the final 3 minutes, but I did want to ask you this question about this wagging the dog. But just before I do that, after the next hour, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, The Politics of Our Faith on Wealthy Wednesdays, is our regular contributor. We are going to talk in part on a number of issues, but certainly the Southern California Edison issue, because there may be a plan afoot that Todd has conceived, along with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, to get Brother Pedro Pizarro's attention. We're going to talk about it, and then we'll talk with the boss about it to see if it's something that he thinks we should pursue on behalf of his efforts and the people of Altadena's efforts to get the attention of Mr. Pedro Pizarro. 626-302-2255. We got a plan for Pedro. Hey, I want to go.
I love it. I love it.
I want to go back to Venezuela for a minute. This idea of shifting the subject matter with real human lives, with lives at stake, putting lives on the line for to change the political narrative of a story is no profile in courage, Atiba. It is about as weak as it gets, and both Democrats and Republicans do it. Atiba?
Yeah, but let's not forget that the president has also been lobbying to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And, so this assault, this whole idea that, these boats are bringing in drugs into the United States, it only feeds another narrative. And it feels as if we're not paying as much attention to that. Same way, unfortunately, we're not, and this is, the media doesn't tell you how to think. They just tell you what to think about. So the thing that I think the president learned and his team in the first term was not just how powerful the presidency is, but how powerful the presidency is in terms of narrating the story or putting forward the story that they want to be told. So there are all these different things that have been going on, and we never get a chance to just take a breath, because, whether or not it's Venezuela, Jasmine mentioned the $40 billion that went to Argentina. Why did that $40 billion go to Argentina? Why is the administration's concerned so much about keeping this guy in power? There are just so many different of these facets. There are people that tell me that they voted, in the 2024 election because they didn't like the way that Biden was handling the Middle East crisis. There's the things that are going on with Russia and Ukraine. There are the things that are going on in Ethiopia and Eritrea. There are the things that are going on in what is it called, in China, and just all these things that are going on. I ask that we also think what was going on 100 years ago with geopolitical positioning. What is it, and why are we so big and blowing this big thing about selling $1 trillion worth of military arms to another country? What is it that we are doing? Because a lot of it is leading to destabilization of the world. And what does that mean? We're talking about affordability. These are all the things that led to the Great Depression.
I want to ask one other question before your word of hope. Congress has abdicated its responsibility with respect to Venezuela. No articulable case has been made for why the nation's most powerful battleships are sitting in that region. Not one to the American people. No joint session of Congress, no Oval Office meeting. Just the president has decided that he has declared that there's some kind of national security emergency in his head that has obligated the U.S. Armed Services from this so-called Department of War with this other nut, by the way, at the head of the Department of War, who's just modeling suits and talking a lot of bravado. A quick question for you, and then your thoughts on a word of hope.
Yeah, Jesse, I feel like we're in batting practice right now. I feel like you're just throwing me softball so I can just keep hitting them out of the park. This is good practice. Because nobody's talking about the submarine that was like off the coast or near Alaska. So when we start talking about moving ships and what have you all around, that is depleting and that's weakening our own defense. So all of these things that are happening are that not happening by accident. It's just that some people ask me, how do you remember all these different things? I can remember all these things and I can pick up my phone and not remember why. Because all of them do have an impact on us. And so right now we have a bunch of children that are manning the playground and everybody is just going amok. And, it's going to take, I feel like midterms can't get here soon enough, but I also keep thinking, what are the things that are going to happen that they're going to do to keep people's attention focused until the 11th hour and then do something big and something grand? Like, we're going to create this big problem and now we're going to solve it. But the reality is it never had to be a problem. We created it. And that's, when I say to people, keep your eyes on the prize, I'm just like, whatever happens right now, good or bad, keep your eyes focused. That's what John Lewis wrote in my book. With faith and hope, keep your eyes on the prize. Let's keep our eyes on the prize in terms of what we can and will do November 3rd, 2026 to change the direction and right the ship.
You have about 2.5 minutes for our word of hope.
That's my lead in right there. My word of hope is that we keep our eyes on the prize and that we keep the faith and that we keep hope and that we recognize that that none of this is going to be easy. It wasn't easy for those who founded this country. It wasn't easy for the Native Americans who were first on this soil and had the land ripped from them. It wasn't easy for the Africans who were just going about their business, who were kidnapped and brought to America. It wasn't easy for the immigrants that came here. It has never been easy. But that's what also this is about. America is an idea. The Americans are the promise. And it is up to us to recognize that promise is to create a more perfect union. And how do we get there? We have to figure out ways that we get there together. What are our common things and our common threads? And I believe that my hope is that we talk to people that we don't necessarily agree with, and that we listen to people that we don't necessarily agree with, and we open our hearts, because we ask and want them to open their hearts. We have to come. also with an open heart. But that does not mean to easily forgive or necessarily, definitely do not forget. And so just keep your eyes on the prize and recognize that the midterms matter and that we still have a year before we get there, but there's work and things that we can do and we can be doing together to get there together and to make this a more perfect union.
Keep our eyes on the prize, Atiba warns us and encourages us. Keep our eyes on the prize because he's going to drop some pretty nasty bombs to prove his point, to distract the American people's attention, to get the media's attention. Atiba, we're very grateful for your contribution to the show.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here and to have these conversations with you, Jesse.
Appreciate you, brother. This is Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our regular conversations with Atiba always occur on Wealthy Wednesdays. I'm so grateful for his contribution. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 with Dr. Todd Yeary, Politics of Our Faith. We got a lot to talk about.
LA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A bill demanding the release of every file tied to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is now on its way to President Trump.
An act to require the Attorney General to release all documents and records in possession of the Department of Justice relating to Jeffrey Epstein.
Trump has already said he plans to sign it once it reaches his desk. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams praised incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani for keeping Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, calling it a nod to his administration's successful public safety policies. Adams notes crime has dropped for 8 straight quarters, while Mamdani says he values Tisch's work on reducing corruption and crime. And the House rejected a resolution to censor Black Democrat Stacey Plaskett for receiving a 2019 text from Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing. 3 Republicans joined Democrats in voting no. Plaskett says she was not involved in any illegal activity and has donated all Epstein campaign contributions to women's groups. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's the Black Friday of all Black Fridays now at Big O Tires. Buy 3, get 1 free on select tires with paid installation, or get 50% off a full synthetic oil change and 20% off any repair service. It's Black Friday now through December 7th at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of follow-up notes from LeBron's historic season debut Tuesday night. LeBron had only 11 points in the Lakers' win over the Utah Jazz, but he still holds the NBA all-time record for most consecutive games to score in double figures. LeBron has scored 10 or more points in 1,293 straight games. The streak started on January 6, 2007. LeBron's first NBA game was in Sacramento on October 29, 2003, when he was with Cleveland. There were 2 players in Utah's starting lineup Tuesday night that weren't even born on that day. Shooting guard Keontae George was born on November 8, 2003. Rookie point guard Ace Bailey was born August 13, 2006. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders will make his first NFL start for the Cleveland Browns in Sunday's game in Las Vegas. Dylan Gabriel is still dealing with concussion symptoms. Deion's son now has the opportunity he's been pushing for. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Let me be clear about what we're witnessing here. A textbook case of talking about communities instead of talking with them. Pedro Pizarro, president and CEO of Edison International, found time this week to sit down with the LA Times to discuss their so-called fast pay program for those impacted by the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. We think it is neither fast nor fair, but when we organized the community town hall, Southern California Edison first confirmed participation and then abruptly canceled. There was no time available on Mr. Pizarro's calendar for a face-to-face conversation with the individuals and families who have lost everything due to the negligence of Southern California Edison. This is not an accident. This is a choice about who deserves direct engagement and who gets managed through press statements. When you talk to the LA Times about people, you control the narrative. You get to frame the issues on your terms, with your spin, filtered through journalists who may or may not push back. But when you show up to a town hall, you face real questions from real people experiencing real problems. There's no PR buffer. There's real accountability. This pattern of being available to corporate media, but unavailable for community dialogue, sends a clear message about whose voices matter and whose don't. It's the kind of disrespect that hides behind busy schedules and prior commitments, but the community sees right through it. If these issues are important enough to discuss with the LA Times, they're important enough to discuss directly with the people living them. Anything less isn't just disrespectful, it's a fundamental failure of leadership and accountability. Mr. Pizarro says in the LA Times interview, I need to go to the supermarket in Pasadena or Altadena and be able to look people in the eye. We want to do the right thing for our community. You had a chance to look folk in the eye at our town hall meeting last week, but you didn't show up. And then we invited you for a one-on-one conversation here at the station, but you have yet to confirm. So please, please stop with the gaslighting. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Wealthy Wednesdays. Dr. Todd Urey will be with us just moments away from the politics of our faith and our weekly conversation to offer some insights on Brother Pedro Pizarro and Southern California Edison's disrespect of the people of Altadena by not paying us the courtesy phone call and showing up to have a meeting with Brother Smiley to discuss the compensation funds and the myriad of issues that surround the tragic wildfires. We can still reach out to Pedro Pizarro at 626-302-2255. Press number 1 to get his office directly. 626-302-2255. Press number 1. Or you can reach him by email, pedro.pizarro, Pizarro at sce.com, pedro.pizarro@sce.com. I spoke this past week with Reverend Al Sharpton and a number of others who happen to be in the city of Chicago. We talked about the valiant campaign that Brother Smiley is leading along with KBLA in Los Angeles, trying to find out ways in which we can be helpful to get the attention of Southern California Edison to discuss these critical issues that concern the billions of dollars in damage tied directly to their faulty equipment, and to compound the problem, his disrespect of us with respect to the not showing up the town hall meeting after having committing to be there. And I'm particularly honored that Dr. S. Todd Urey has now joined us. Dr. Urey, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the politics of our faith on Wealthy Wednesdays.
Always good to be with you, my brother. And since I know you are been looking for folk who tend not to show up, I wasn't trying to be on that list.
I certainly appreciate that. Oh, let me ask you a question, Dr. Urey, because we have about 2 minutes before we come forward. And I know that you seem to be driving, so I want you to be very, very careful. In this moment, I think about what would Jesse Jackson do? And you brought up a brilliant idea that I'd like to talk about over the next hour with you, with regard with how Jesse Jackson approached corporate America and how he would have approached a utility like Southern California Edison. Dr. Urey.
It's a fascinating question, and it's one that I think few people have been able to fully appreciate. What Reverend would often do is understand not just the corporation, but the type of corporation you're dealing with. When you're dealing with a publicly regulated utility, in many instances, you're dealing with a legal monopoly. And so there's a bit of a dependence of the customers on this, designated entity to provide certain services. And so the first thing he would do in dealing with them that we always have to do is you got to know who's going to be your opponent when you get in the ring. You can't just hop in with gloves and shorts and boxing shoes on and decide you're going to start swinging. You got to understand the nature of the fight, the size of the ring, and the measurements of your opponent so that when you size them up, you can then begin to think creatively about what strategies you will use to address your concerns and at the same time make sure that your opponent does not take you lightly.
So, give us an example of how he would have approached a utility like Southern California Edison.
Well, first, he would size them up, look at their measurements, right? What is their stock price? What was their earnings per share? Pull their last annual report to shareholders. Look at who holds the vast majority of shares. Many times, your largest shareholders are going to be pension funds or other high net worth individuals, sometimes other corporations for their own pension fund diversity. You need to see not just what is the profile of the corporation, but who's standing behind the corporation for whatever it is doing. And so it's important that we know those details because it may not just be the entity, it may be primarily the entity, but also those who are endorsing the entity's practices that we need to be ready to go after as well.
So, Jesse Jackson would encourage his supporters to buy a certain number of shares of stock of a company, and Jesse Jackson would take this fight to the floor of the shareholders meeting, would he not?
Would, but it's not just that one fight, right? So let's start. We know we've got the target, right? Here's who we're fighting, but who's their trainer, right? Because we may need to buy their stock too. Who are the pension funds, and are there potentially employment entities, many times unions, that take our dues and then take our dues to invest in corporations that are abusing the folks who pay the dues. So there are a number of levels of analysis that we would have to do. Buying the stock to be present at the shareholders meeting, that's one level of engagement, but also making sure that we're following all of the tentacles that flow from it to find out who else needs to be a part of this conversation should we not be able to reach some sort of amicable understanding and resolution of our problems just one-on-one. It was never, if we get it one and done, great. If not, we got more work to do.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The subject matter that we're having this hour is about Brother Pedro Pizarro. We're coming. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
All I need is one mic. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Let me be clear about what we're witnessing here. A textbook case of talking about communities instead of talking with them. Pedro Pizarro, president and CEO of Edison International, found time this week to sit down with the LA Times to discuss their so-called fast pay program for those impacted by the Altadena-Eaton Canyon fire. We think it is neither fast nor fair, but when we organized the community town hall, Southern California Edison first confirmed participation and then abruptly canceled. There was no time available on Mr. Pizarro's calendar for a face-to-face conversation with the individuals and families who have lost everything due to the negligence of Southern California Edison. This is not an accident. This is a choice about who deserves direct engagement and who gets managed through press statements. When you talk to the LA Times about people, you control the narrative. You get to frame the issues on your terms, with your spin, filtered through journalists who may or may not push back. But when you show up to a town hall, you face real questions from real people experiencing real problems. There's no PR buffer. There's real accountability. This pattern of being available to corporate media, but unavailable for community dialogue, sends a clear message about whose voices matter and whose don't. It's the kind of disrespect that hides behind busy schedules and prior commitments, but the community sees right through it. If these issues are important enough to discuss with the LA Times, they're important enough to discuss directly with the people living them. Anything less isn't just disrespectful, it's a fundamental failure of leadership and accountability. Mr. Pizarro says in the LA Times interview, I need to go to the supermarket in Pasadena or Altadena and be able to look people in the eye. We want to do the right thing for our community. You had a chance to look folk in the eye at our town hall meeting last week, but you didn't show up. And then we invited you for a one-on-one conversation here at the station, but you have yet to confirm. So please, please stop with the gaslighting. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the Politics of Our Faith with Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary, who is the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore, former chief executive officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition, former national board National Action Network, and founding principal of SALT, Strategic Advocacy and Legislative Think Tank, a faith-based public policy collaborative. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you, my brother, but you seem to start the trouble today, so we're gonna see where we go.
So I think Dr. Yeary has a slight technical difficulty with his sound because he is now out of his car and into his study. And I can hear you though, Todd. And I know you're going to be coming back, but I just want you to get a little closer to your mic. Hey, listen, I want you all to download this podcast today because I have a picture of my father playing basketball with Marvin Gaye. And I'm thinking about the moves, Todd, in this moment that Jesse Jackson would be putting on Pedro Pizarro at SCE.com. That's Pedro, Pedro Pizarro, Pizarro at SCE.com, whose phone number is 626-302-2255, press number 1. We're talking about the disrespect that he showed the people of Altadena and people who need during this Thanksgiving, and are reflecting upon the kind of Thanksgiving they're going to have, given that their belongings were destroyed and they have to rebuild their lives. And Pedro Pizarro wouldn't pay us the courtesy of showing up at the town hall meeting that he initially committed to come to, and then he cut bait and left us out there without any kind of communication. We received some kind of cryptic email from him recently He started talking with the LA Times, couldn't hush talking to the LA Times. But those of us who are paying for his power and his faulty, raggedy systems that set the fire out there now, Tadina, he ain't got time to talk to us, but we're going to change that. We're going to change that dynamic. And so I got Jesse Jackson on my mind for obvious reasons. The Reverend is recuperating, but he would approach this, Todd, in a certain kind of way. And I don't know anyone who knows the methodology of Jesse Jackson as well as you do on these questions. One of the things that I do know is that if we bought, for example, I think it's $58 a share, about $2,000 worth of stock. If some of you will come into the KBLA website and help us with a small contribution, I think I looked it up yesterday. They were about $58 a share. But if we empowered Tavis with that'd be about 20 shares of stock, that would make us a stockholder and a shareholder, which means we would have an ownership interest in Southern California, and just a total of about $2,000. That's all. About $2,000 is what we need to raise. But buy the stock in the name of KBLA Talk 1580 so that KBLA Talk 1580 can develop a little portfolio, just like the Rainbow Coalition has. We don't ask for much. We get these little bitty stock things. And then Jesse Jackson would show up at these meetings and do everything Tavis is doing because he can have the microphone at the shareholder meeting. And then he's going to meet some of the people who represent the unions and the pension funds. He's going to meet all of these people who are going to be in that meeting, because it's not just Pedro Pizarro. See, he's the figurehead of all of these people. He represents their money. And if Pedro Pizarro is catching the heat, he's really going to catch the heat when we go to speak to these interests that you're talking about, Todd, who have an interest in Southern California Edison and their monopoly. And if we expose their monopoly and the injustice of the designee that they have sent to was supposed to come to our meeting and didn't show up, he's going to call us back now. He's going to call us back. But Todd, what would Jesse Jackson do?
Well, he would look at the timing. So I just looked real quick. The last annual meeting was in April of this year. Anticipate the next annual meeting being in April next year.
It's not quarterly.
In the meantime,
it's not a quarterly meeting.
What do we do? No, the annual shareholders meeting, every corporation is required to have at least one annual meeting to satisfy compliance. So it's really a compliance meeting.
Okay.
If they're electing new board members, we look at who's on the board and who are the board members connected to. We look at the distribution of the stocks that are currently held, who's holding them. We also look at related entities. Edison International is really a big corporate holding company. There are a number of subsidiary entities that Edison International holds. What are those entities? How do those entities factor in? And so while we're getting ready to attend, say, an Edison International shareholders meeting, we are looking to make sure that we have all of the necessary information to have an informed conversation, because we're not going on a rant. That's not what this is. We are having a righteous engagement about making sure that corporate social responsibility is actually part and parcel of the relationship that should exist between our community and these communities that really have government approval to take our money and charge us fees for service. Now, here's why I think you didn't get Mr. Pizarro to come to your meeting, because I listened to Brother Tavis' presentation on the commercial. He used an important word. He used the word negligence. Negligence has a serious legal connotation. And my guess would be is that someone in the law department suggested to Mr. Pizarro that he ought not show up so that they could then script certain conversations because of litigation risk. All right. So with those things in mind, where do we find the sweet spot, the opportunity to engage in a constructive way to work out what is necessary to remedy concerns in our community without getting hustled or gamed, so to speak, like we're looking at the picture of your dad. Like he's getting ready to, he's moving with the ball. You can tell he's dribbling.
He won that
right?
game, by the way. He won that game versus Marvin Gaye, by the way.
Right.
Marvin
So
said, what's going on? What's going on after my dad dunked on him?
that's that's the whole question, right? They all seem to ask what's going on when you get dunked on, right? What happened? What happened? That's the reality. So now's the time to be very intentional and very strategic and know where we're going. What do? We organize. That's what Reverend would tell us. It's not just show up to be a one and done. Who else needs to be a part of this emerging movement to establish some accountability from this utility? And does it mean that we need to engage who regulates the utility at the state level? The state government. So who in state government? Do we reach out to Governor Newsom's office and say, look, what's going on with whichever cabinet level agency is responsible for utility oversight? We're not getting any response. Why is that? So you have shareholder interest on one hand, but then you have a different stakeholder interest as the electorate on the other hand, and say, we're going to put pressure wherever pressure needs to be applied, and we're going to use our dollars, we're going to use our voices, and we're going to use our votes to hold everybody in this accountable until we get justice for our concerns.
I'm wondering in this moment, does the LA Times have a stake in Southern California Edison?
Well, we can do a little searching.
Yeah, we do a little searching right there.
What we-
it does not have a stake apparently in this quick search, but it's hard to believe that, to your point, that pension funds and others have this overlap in the investment of pensions in these utilities, which essentially are guaranteed monthly banks of some percentage of our checks every month. It's just a gift. A utility is a gift that keeps on giving. Hey, by the way, Nikola Tesla, who discovered the alternating current, believed that electricity should have been provided for free. He was a serious theist and a serious deist and a serious believer. And in his thinking, he had discovered something that God had given to all human beings, power, all of the ionosphere and all of these various spheres that circumnavigate the globe that create a magnetic field. It belongs to all of us. And somehow his big problem with Thomas Edison was that Thomas Edison found a way to take that which is so plentiful in the ionosphere and charge it to people for profit. And it really, really tanked Tesla's thinking. And I don't mean Tesla associated with Elon Musk. I'm talking about the genius, Nikola Tesla, who discovered the alternating current. And he was hot that Thomas Edison had lifted his idea and found a way to make a profit off of it. It irritated him to no end. Dr.
Well, we should be mindful that many times what we're buying is not the thing, but we're buying access to the thing that someone else has harnessed so that it can be delivered to us for a cost. And so those who say they produce electricity are actually just relying upon methods to harness what's available to generate that which could be measured, metered, sold for a profit. But I want to go back to the real quick point about whether or not the LA Times has in stock. Here's the other relationship, though. I would ask Edison International, how much do you spend on advertising with the LA Times and related entities? Because if there is an economic dependency or benefit, if I'm paying you lots of money to carry my ads, and I'm paying you, then you now have a self-interest to message in a way that is beneficial to me. So it's not always the one way, it's the two way. Where are these dollars flowing? Because one hand is clearly, I would argue, possibly washing the other, and we need to see who's got the soap.
So here we go. The LA Times covers a wide range of topics related to Southern California Edison, including infrastructure projects, public safety incidents such as recent fires that have been caused by SCE equipment. The company Communication Southern California Edison proactively engages with the LA Times to provide information and correct what it perceives as errors in reporting. And here's their shared operational area. While not direct relationship, there is an overlap in their service and coverage areas in Southern California. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More on KBLA Wealthy Wednesdays with Todd Yeary when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. It's unclear when the Department of Justice will release the remaining Jeffrey Epstein files. Attorney General Pam Bondi says a new investigation in New York involves new information.
But we will continue to follow the law, again, while protecting victims, but also providing maximum transparency.
A bill requiring the Department of Justice to release the files within 30 days is now awaiting President Trump's signature. Maryland's Black Governor Wes Moore announced Korean biotech company NatureCell will open a 100,000 square foot facility in Baltimore, creating 500 jobs. Set to open by 2031, the site reinforces Maryland's status as a leader in biotechnology. And Black NFL Hall of Famer Jerry Rice and his wife have erased nearly $700,000 in student lunch debt at 103 schools nationwide, providing relief to thousands of children. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's the Black Friday of all Black Fridays now at Big O Tires. Buy 3, get 1 free on select tires with paid installation. Or get 50% off a full synthetic oil change and 20% off any repair service. It's Black Friday now through December 7th at your local Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of follow-up notes from LeBron's historic season debut Tuesday night. LeBron had only 11 points in the Lakers' win over the Utah Jazz, but he still holds the NBA all-time record for most consecutive games to score in double figures. LeBron has scored 10 or more points in 1,293 straight games. The streak started on January 6, 2007. LeBron's first NBA game was in Sacramento on October 29, 2003, when he was with Cleveland. There were 2 players in Utah's starting lineup Tuesday night that weren't even born on that day. Shooting guard Keontae George was born on November 8, 2003. Rookie point guard Ace Bailey was born August 13, 2006. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders will make his first NFL start for the Cleveland Browns in Sunday's game in Las Vegas. Dillon Gabriel is still dealing with concussion symptoms. Deion's son now has the opportunity he's been pushing for. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago when California first took on the tobacco industry. Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 52%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening. See our progress at undo.org.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson. It's Wealthy Wednesdays. Dr. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the show.
Good to be with you. You stirring it up. You stirred it up real good.
Hey, let me ask you a question because I did a little research because, we feel some kind of way about being disrespected by Pedro Pizarro, PEDRO.PIZARRO at SCE.com. His phone number is 626-302-2255. Press number 1, ask to speak to Pedro. I did a little Google search right here, and AI comes in handy these days. Yes, it says Southern California Edison does advertise with the Los Angeles Times, including running paid programs and special supplements. The two entities have a business relationship, although the coverage of the utility by the newspaper's editorial department has been a point of contention. Paid programs and special supplements. SCE has purchased advertising space that appears as paid programs or special supplements in the Los Angeles Times. These clearly state that they are produced by the advertising department on behalf of the advertiser and are not part of the newsroom's editorial content. Here are the advertising tie-ins. In the past, the two companies had an arrangement where SCE offered Los Angeles Times subscriptions to its new utility customers. Now, let me say that again. In the past, the two companies had an arrangement where the Southern SCE offered Los Angeles Times subscriptions to its new utility customers. SCC has published various opinion pieces and letters to the editor in the Los Angeles Times, often to set the record straight regarding the newspaper's news coverage of the company and its operations, particularly concerning wildfires and rate changes. It seems to me that that there's just enough relationship between the California Edison Company and the Los Angeles Times that one, KBLA under Tavis's leadership, we could request our own editorial to be written about the disrespect, about not talking to the residents themselves, and how offensive it was that he went to the LA Times and felt comfortable going to the LA Times, because I'm sure there are people in Altadena and people who are affected by the wildfires who also have subscriptions to the LA Times. So why is it that Pedro.Pizarro at SCE.com, Pedro.Pizarro at SCC, why does he get an editorial board hearing, but the people of Altadena not get an editorial board hearing when both of them are subscribers to the LA Times?
So, one, we have to be able to quantify, right? You cannot defend what you have not measured.
Okay.
So let's look at the relationship. How many subscriptions to the LA Times come from our community or affected communities by what has occurred? Understanding the relationship. The LA Times Media Group is the parent of the LA Times. What does that relationship look like? who's the CEO, right? This becomes an always ongoing analysis. And when you ask the question about what Reverend would do, is he was constantly asking question after question after question ad nauseum until he had exhausted all, at least at that phase or that stage, of the potential relationships that he needs to know about or at least be aware of as he's engaging these conversations. Because it could very well be that the resolution to the problem may not come from the shareholders, but it may come from some other relationship that's connected to the shareholders. So what folks don't want is bad media, bad press. And so the Vanguard Group is the largest shareholder of Edison International. So Vanguard, the mutual fund financial services company, right? About 13.5%, 52 million shares. Well, let's look at Vanguard. Let's look at BlackRock. BlackRock is second, right? When we go down the list and we start looking at where are the pressure points, because this is, you don't have choir rehearsal with a soloist. You have a soloist in the choir, but we got to figure out who are the other voices that need to be a part of this, this singing aggregation, because what is happening, and we often see it, is that corporations leverage relationships that they know about that the people don't know about. So they have media to help with messaging. They have regulatory cover, very often from state governments that we've got to explore and exploit in the positive sense of the word. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board has about 2%, 5.5 million shares. Now, that's not a controlling interest, but if you build critical mass where it becomes necessary for the preservation of the stock value to address this issue in a way that is responsible and really necessary, morally right, then you begin to say, here's who's standing with Southern California Edison in this presentation of not just silence, they're ignoring intentional behavior, the conversation with the people. Help us understand what's going on so we know how to respond. We have been harmed. And so you call out. I mean, it's public. You look, Google is a friend, right? I'll tell you where Yahoo Finance gave it to me, right? Let's look at it. And if you say Vanguard Group, BlackRock, State Street, Geode Capital Management, AQR Capital Management, Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, Northern Trust Corporation, FMR, Norhis Bank, and Invesco, if you just start with that first screen and say, look, y'all in this choir, is he directing you all to support this song that he's singing to the detriment of SCE's customers? That's how Reverend approaches this, because what may start with what appears to be a single conversation, you may get to the conversation you need to have by making some other phone calls first.
So let me ask this question. Pedro Pizarro, pedro.pizarro at sce.com. Pedro makes $12 million a year. And this all starts from the fact that he didn't show up after he committed to showing up at a town hall meeting with the residents of Altadena to discuss a myriad of issues. But now we add to the myriad of issues disrespect. Does making Pedro Pizarro the poster child with the $12 million, does that help or advocate or push our cause any further down the road? I mean, he's obviously in the top 1% of 1% of 1% of Americans who is doing. Pedro Pizarro, wait a second. Is Pedro Pizarro a DEI hire at Southern California Edison?
No, but let's. I'm glad you raised that.
Well, I do, because every time
thing,
you mention a black woman or a black man who's at the top of a corporation in America today, they take the heat, man, of how'd you get here? And so, we were supposed to be in this together now because we've been fighting for us to be at the head of these corporations for a long time. I'm not letting it go because I look at, you said Jesse Jackson asked a lot of questions. Hell, I ask a lot of questions. Jesse Jr. asks a lot of questions too. How'd you get there?
Well, let's go with why would the CEO not show up? The CEO is not a self-hire. The CEO works for the board. So the obvious next question that Reverend would have us do is let's look at who's on the board by name and affiliation. First thing you notice, if you look up Edison International's board, the first thing that's very clear is that there are no black faces on the board. Not
any brown faces? Any brown faces on the board?
Well, I mean, brown. I mean, you got Pedro Pizarro sitting at CEO, right? He's a director. You've got Michael Camunez, who's there. But here's an interesting name that you'll recall, who just joined the board, Jennifer Granholm.
Oh, wow.
Listen, you got to look at where these relationships are and who's providing the cover. And so when we do this research, right? Yeah, purchasing the stock, that's a thing. Understanding who's in the corner, who's the corner crew, who's the cut person, right? Who's the one that's making sure that, their fighters get in the water because this is going to be a long bout. Who's calling the shots in terms of the legal strategy, because that's part of it. You got to be ready to navigate those things so that when you get to your messaging.
How does a nearly all, I know we're going to come forward in just a moment, but how does an all nearly white board with Jennifer Granholm and a couple of Hispanic surnames with no black person on the board, how do we get their attention, our little community of Altadena? I mean, how did we not get on the board of Edison International? And where did Jennifer Granholm covered a lot of real estate to get to Southern California, Edison, to skip over our communities and the qualified people in our communities who could have served on that board. So, yeah, I want to keep peeling this onion back because we're waiting to hear from Pedro Pizarro, 626-302-2255. Please help us get through to Pedro, as many listeners as we can, because we got to get Pedro's attention. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm going to let Todd Yeary break it all the way down for us and give us a word of hope when this is over with. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Imagine being a million miles away. Tremfya Kuselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays, and this is our final segment with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary is our regular contributor. He has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom. But today we have both feet in Southern California, Edison, as we try to find out why Pedro Pizarro is disrespecting us. And at the heart of this is a question for respect. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and on your show, The Politics of Our Faith.
Sir, I appreciate the opportunity because all I do is get to share a little bit of what I've gleaned from your dad, who continues to marvel for us a courage that is rarely, if ever, seen amongst folks in human form.
I really appreciate that, Dr. Yeary. And I don't know anyone who has dissected these numbers and these approach in the modern era quite like you did and have done and have been doing for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jesse Jackson doesn't just show up, give a speech, and have a press conference. These are very well thought through conversations before we take on some of these challenges, lining up the support in some cases on the front side so that there's less resistance on the backside. But when I think about the Reverend George Edgar Riddick, who has long since been deceased, but was in our early boycotts with PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, and many of the black distributors of Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are the beneficiaries of fights that Jesse Jackson put up. And we went through this exact same analysis. It's the reason we got black people in the Kentucky Fried Chicken business. There was a time in the early 70s when Negroes didn't have Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises, although we were eating about 65% of the chicken. And we took on Kentucky Fried Chicken. Then we took on A&P and grocery stores. We took on McDonald's and created the Black McDonald's Owners Association, BOMA. Jesse Jackson is one of the founding members of that organization. We took on Burger King, and we beat Burger King, created Negro Burger King businesses and Popeyes franchises. Listen, we took on the automobile dealers and created the Black General Motors Group, the Black Ford Group, the Black Suppliers Group. Jesse Jackson methodologically came after these companies, not with a press conference and a speech, but we broke them down to their irreducible essence. And when we got there, we found out and shared with them that it was in your best interest to do business with us. We don't want to fight. We don't want to be on the outside. We want to be on the inside. But, when you tell me that there are no blacks on Edison's board, no one we can even appeal to. Hell, we even got Melody Hobson on the Starbucks board. So we had a problem with Starbucks. We could go to Melody Hobson. That was Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson took on Wall Street so that we could get on the various exchanges and demand more black investment bankers. But when I think about, we don't have anybody to call at Edison That is a much larger problem because there should be somebody we can call who can say, y'all not sensitive to this. Y'all not sensitive to this. With that said, Dr. Yuri,
Well,
go ahead. I'm listening.
so let me help you there
Sorry, Todd,
because
just before you do, our producer's telling me she has a clip.
An NPR investigation has found evidence of electrical malfunctions that happened in LA hours before a massive wildfire started there 9 months ago. The Eaton fire started after sparks were seen near Southern California Edison's transmission lines in the mountains. Transmission lines are power lines that carry high voltage electricity long distances. But our investigation found that electrical malfunctions on distribution lines started hours earlier. Those are lower voltage lines that send electricity to homes. We obtained data from a company called Whisker Labs that sells home fire detection devices. And we focused our research on Altadena, one of the LA neighborhoods hit hardest by the Eaton fire. 19 people there were killed, and thousands of buildings were destroyed. This data indicates there were more than 200 distribution line malfunctions across LA on the day of the wildfire. 3 of those happened in Altadena. One was in the morning, hours before sparks were seen in the evening near Eaton Canyon. Each of those malfunctions could have led to fires. They can lead to arcing when electricity sparks outside of the wiring. Electrical equipment can then melt and fall to the ground, starting a fire. We requested information from the fire department and talked to residents to see if that happened. We found that firefighters were dispatched 35 times to areas in Altadena to respond to electrical problems like wires down or arcing. And one family said a fire started on their property after they saw problems on distribution lines. Around 4:15 p.m., there was a loud bang at Tom Ware's house, and the lights flickered. Ware and his neighbors went outside and found sparks falling down from their utility pole. That started a ground fire. The family called firefighters and together put out that fire.
Fire is down 11's engine 12. This is also being reported at 2361 Catherine Road.
But a few hours later, another fire sparked in around the same place. Ware was able to put out that fire too, but then he had to evacuate. The next morning, he got a video from his neighbor. There had been a third fire. This time, it burned everything inside the house. SoCal Edison, the utility company, can turn power off to prevent those kinds of fires. And they did for some areas of LA and Altadena. But of the 12 circuits that power Altadena, they left 8 of them on all day on January 7th and didn't turn any of them off during the fires. SoCal Edison said they believe they shut power off correctly.
I just lost you, so I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Dr.
Oh,
Yuri,
you're muted.
I apologize about that. A final thought on what we both saw and your final word of hope.
All right, couple things. One is who's going to stand in the gap? That's the fundamental question in this moment. And standing in the gap means doing what is necessary to advocate for those whose interests hang in the balance and for whom there is no voice or representation at the table. The reason you have Jennifer Granholm on this board is she's the former energy secretary. Why would you have a former energy secretary on a board if you're an energy company? That's kind of obvious. There are environmental energy lawyers on the board. These board positions likely paid, so there's compensation attached to it. We need to understand how monopolies played. But here's the issue. There's this conversation in Isaiah where there's a question raised. Whom shall I send and who will go for us? Part of this is not just self-interest, but divine interest. God has a stake in what happens to the least of these, those who are left behind and left out of these conversations. And so it's important that we know how to move, how to navigate. I went through the site. I'm going to give you something. Pedro works for the board. Talk to the board. I'm getting ready to give you something. Get ready. On the board, when it says contact our board of directors, I like that. I want to talk to the folk that make the decisions when we go to the shareholders meeting.
Shareholders and interested parties may send communications in writing addressed to the applicable directors, individually, collectively, all of the above, in care of the corporate secretary at Edison International in Southern California Edison Company. There's the address. I'll make sure you got it. The email address, hear it now, corporate secretary, spell it out, corporate secretary at Edison, INTL, it's the abbreviation for international, corporate secretary at Edison, spell Edison out, INTL.com. Bombard the board, demanding a conversation about what is the remedy to be that addresses the concerns, because we know they've got the ability to monitor, to measure, and to intervene when they see disruptions in the system. The question is, why did it not happen here? And at the end of the day, you got to do your homework. You can't just show up and think that that's going to resolve it. We got to be real intentional, very intentional and meticulous about how we navigate this. And at the end of the day, there'll be a comprehensive strategy that makes sure that the needs of people are raised in a way that is credible and moral at the same time.
We are all the more wealthy on Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Pedro Pizarro, pedro.pizarro at sce.com. We're going to put up the board email on our next shows going forward because we want to get the attention of Mr. Pizarro. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward tomorrow on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. Bye-bye.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.